Hi, and welcome to another episode of Coffee Break. I'm Nathan Wilner with NCBA, and I'm really excited today to have with me Doug Bell, who is a government relations professional from Florida, and who I had the recent pleasure of meeting at the Florida Creditors Bar Association meeting. So, welcome, Doug. I think our listeners first would like to hear a little bit about you and your background.
Well, thanks, Nathan. It's great to see you again. And of course, it was a pleasure to be on that panel with you in Orlando. I learned quite a bit actually from your presentation on what you do for folks in Washington and then more on a national scale. So appreciated that. I am well, first of all, I'm a lawyer. I've been a member of the Florida Bar since 1995. But my practice for the last 27 years or so has been almost exclusively legislative affairs, government relations, whatnot, where I will advocate for uh, any number of different types of clients before the Florida legislature, the governor and cabinet, and then the executive branch here in Tallahassee. And I'm in a small firm. We're a little boutique law firm, but we're basically a lobbying firm. Half of us are lawyers, half are not lawyers, but we're all full-time lobbyists here in Tallahassee, and we've got 90 plus clients that are from all different business sectors, private for-profit business, associations, not-for-profit organizations, local governments, etc. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, so you have a lot of experience, and again, being an attorney, I think that makes it a little easier sometimes to understand the issues that the creditors' rights bar associations have. So let me just get right to the point. What are the unique advantages of having an outside state lobbyist? I mean, many folks think, oh, it's just the state. I can just make a phone call or I'll show up. So maybe explain like why it's so critical to have someone that understands the landscape at the state level when you're doing, government relations.
Right. Yeah. I think jetting in and thinking you're going to have an impact without having years of building relationships and understanding the unique process of a state is unwise, and I would say probably most likely proves to be unsuccessful. Um, as a contract lobbyist, we work very closely with the elected officials in Florida. We're located in Tallahassee, but there are very good lobbyists that are located elsewhere in Florida, but focus their practice on Florida. And so the advantage is I've got years of relationships with these legislators. I have decades of relationships with the staff in the committees or in the agencies and so forth. And I've developed rapport and a level of trust that they have that what I'm telling them is true. And that if I don't know the answer, they know that, I'll tell them I don't know the answer, but I'll get it for them. And so I think that having that level of relationship and rapport and trust from years of working together is critical. And if you don't have that, your chance of success is pretty limited.
And so like how does, the work that you do complement the internal work of, let's say, an organization's uh, you know, advocacy program or strategy? In other words, how do you work together with the in-house, so to speak, lobbyists?
Well, I would say, as hard as we try to understand as much about the issue as possible, as I said, we've got 90 plus clients between 8 full-time lobbyists, and each client has multiple issues. And Florida has a 60-day session, only 60 days. So
Hmm.
it's a lot of work done in a very short time period. And even though we try to understand all the nuances of an issue, we just simply don't have that bandwidth. So the contract lobbyist will identify who the key people are to work an issue through the legislature. We know who to go to, we know who to not go to, we know what various pressure points there are. We know the internal drama and dynamics of, the internal fights between various legislators as people are trying to become president or speaker or whatever in the 8 years that they have. So because we don't have all that knowledge about an issue, we rely on the internal lobbyist to have the substantive knowledge. So if we have questions, we can ask the internal lobbyist, we can bring the internal lobbyist to Tallahassee, or potentially do a Zoom with a legislator, which they mostly don't like these days. And if the internal lobbyist doesn't know the answer, he or she can absolutely find the answer and find it quickly. I mentioned before that we're in a 60-day session. We do have various committee weeks before that, but we need answers immediately, because if you miss that window, which could be as little as like 6 hours, 2 hours, it depends, you may have missed your opportunity for the session. So we rely on the in-house person to get us the correct answers and to get them quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned something that's so important, and something that I myself, when doing this kind of work across the country, have come across, where these state legislative sessions are 60 days or 90 days, and they move very quickly. If the time you find out about a bill that's going to affect your industry is when that hearing is scheduled, hate to tell you, you're already on the losing end of the
Yeah,
situation.
right. That's
So,
true. It's
so
pretty late. We get
it,
calls late in session, people with their hair on fire, and a lot of times we can have an impact, but at some point the momentum is too much to overcome.
yeah. So maybe you can give me an example, or maybe even this session with the Florida Creditors Bar, where working collaboratively with that group, had a successful result in the state legislature.
Well, we've worked on a number of issues with them and primarily provided information, but to be honest, we have been in situations, we were in situations this last session where we were arguing against something that was a leadership position. And, sometimes you can have an impact on that sort of thing. And, we're pretty darn good at what we do. But, there are other times when you're unsuccessful in a year. Now we're going to go back this year with that leadership is termed out, and we'll make our case with the new incoming leadership and see if we can have some success on that. But with other clients, we also represent the business law section of the bar. We represent the big bar, as well as I said, 90 plus other clients. And we've recently done a rewrite of the entire corporation's chapter, which is a big deal. It was a 400 something page bill. And that's way too much for me and my partner to know. And we are relying upon the client, who these are seasoned 40-year lawyers, and they're the ones who will write the white paper, who will help with all the answers. And there were a lot of questions, and they were able to help out on that. And that's one example. You asked about the creditors bar, and unfortunately, just this last year, it was a situation where we couldn't overcome the leadership, but we're gonna make a run at it again this next session.
Yeah, and look, sometimes knowing, who's behind a bill can make a big difference in the next year's session. So sometimes you have to cut your losses, especially if it's a leadership type of situation.
Right.
Try to negotiate as best you can. So, we're going to run out of time, and first of all, I really appreciate you coming on our coffee break show. But there's folks listening from around the country who have their own state level creditors bar associations, or they're trying to start them. So what advice would you give them when you're looking to hire a state lobbyist? Obviously in Florida, call Doug. But when in other states, what would you suggest our members? What kind of things should they look for when hiring a state lobbyist?
Well, I would make sure that the lobbyist has a significant book of business already, because that means that there are a number of other entities and companies that have relied upon that lobbyist over the course of years, and there's been success. Because when there's not success, a lot of times you'll lose the client. So that shows a track record. But also having quite a few clients also may provide the benefit of having access to campaign contributions, which is something we didn't get into today, but it's a very important aspect from a contract lobbyist perspective. And then, beyond that, a lot of it is just the right fit. Is there a good mix of clients that they also have where they're already present in the appropriate committees working on behalf of other clients? So they developed key relationships with that long-term staff, which usually is pretty consistent with committees. Those are a couple things to look at, and you have to like them, and the fees got to be right too. So
Sure, it has to work, um, and that's why it's important to really have your whole organization understanding the importance of having a government relations professional outside of the organization itself, so you can get that collaborative work done. So
right.
we're running out of time, and I think hopefully you'll agree to come back for another interview, and we can talk more about maybe campaign donations and constituency outreach and things of that kind of other pieces to the puzzle here. But this has been great. So thank you so much, Doug. And what's your closing sentence for this cup of coffee?
I guess I would say right now, given that today's August 15th, we've got our primaries down here on the 20th. So everybody go out and vote.
Absolutely. That's the only way you can make effective change. And maybe it doesn't always work that way either, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. And thank you, Doug Bell, for excellent advice on how to deal with state level advocacy and government relations. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care.